Good morning, Britain. COVID hotspots hit with new travel restrictions. Despite no formal announcement, officials have identified 8 no-go areas in England where COVID cases have spiked. This morning, the government is under fire for not clarifying the new measures.
The shocking 9-minute video that sparked a worldwide civil rights movement, a year since the death of George Floyd in police custody. What has really changed? Labour MP David Lammy claims the Prime Minister's not doing enough for UK race relations. He'll be joining us live.
Also ahead, don't mow, let it grow. Gardening guru Dermot Gavin says, let your lawn plants and flowers go wild to save our bees. Would you be happy with a backyard jungle to get your garden buzzing?
And Hollywood superstars right here live across the morning. Seth Rogen on how he could change your life. And Alan Cumming on why he visited a nudist beach with Susanna McKellen.
Tuesday, 25th of May, 2021. Live from Television Centre in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Susanna Reid and Bill Turnbull.
Good morning. It's just gone 6:30. Welcome to the programme.
How tired were you during the day yesterday?
I was very, very tired, but I went to bed very, very early, and now I'm, back in the game.
Did you order any food on a delivery app?
No, I had a very early supper. I had a very early supper, not taking any chances.
Did you just nip to the corner shop instead?
Just about.
Yeah. Well, there was a huge reaction to Bill's return to the programme yesterday. My favourite headline, I don't think we've got it, was online, Mail Online, but I sent it to you, didn't I, Bill? Kind, professional and respectful. GMB viewers go wild for Bill Turnbull's return. Complete with a technical gaffe, his healthy look, a red-faced Susanna Reid and a saucy sex joke. There we go. I thought
what more could you want?
The boxes
Exactly.
They are calling you Bill Return.
It's in the contract. I've got to produce one of those every day.
Right. Go on then.
We'll see. OK. No, shall we move on?
We have a remarkable story, of course, this morning, our main story, which is this situation where we apparently have 8 no-go areas in England because they're COVID hotspots. And you should avoid travelling in and out of these areas where the Indian variant is fastest growing. Now, this guidance was issued on Friday, last Friday, the 21st of May. It doesn't seem like anyone was actually told about it unless you'd gone to the gov.uk website, which you wouldn't necessarily know to do.
These are big places.
Yes.
What was it? Bolton, there's the list. North Tyneside, Burnley, Blackburn with Darwen, Bolton, Kirklees, Leicester, Bedford, Hounslow. So, and spread all over the place.
And the thing is, you're not supposed to travel in or out of those areas, so you're grounded in those areas. It's almost like they've been put on an amber or a red list. So we are going to try and find out a little bit more about that. This morning, our government minister, after 8 o'clock, is Therese Coffey. Why didn't the government announce, even to the people in these areas, that you can't travel in and out of them unless it's absolutely essential? So that's our main story this morning. Also, we are trying to save the bees, aren't we? Because that's a big passion of yours. I know you're a big timekeeper, but you're also a big beekeeper.
Big bee, well, I keep bees, or try to. I've been doing it for 20 years now, with sort of more or less success. And the idea, Dermot Gavin is saying we should ban the mowing of lawns. Because he says, you know, if we let things grow, there's more places that... I'm feeding a bee on my finger there. But there's more...
Do you hand feed every bee? Is that how it works?
No, that one is a special one because it was called Susanna.
Oh.
Yeah, she was lovely.
Oh. Special
I have her... That's the only time I'll have a Susanna feeding out of my hand. But anyway, he says you should let your lawn...
all your bees.
You should let your lawn grow. Wait.
Catch it on your finger.
You should let your lawn grow because then the dandelions will grow and there's other stuff for bees and other pollinators to feed on because with all the pollinators, there's less space these days and less for them to feed on.
People are very passionate about bees because apparently without bees, we're doomed as a planet.
Well, our diet would be a lot less colourful, put it that way. We would still survive, but it would be very, very difficult.
And you include your honey as part of your
Part of my
diet
regimen.
and part of your treatment, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do. So a spoonful of that every day. But it's got to be sort of local, natural honey, so to speak.
And it couldn't get more local than in
Than
the
in your
hives
own backyard.
in your back garden.
Exactly.
Absolutely right. So people are thrilled to have you back.
Well, thank you. Great to be back.
Particularly me, I have to say. It's absolutely lovely working with you again. I'm still waiting for the joke. The
Got 2
rude
hours.
joke. It's going to get us into the headlines on the Mail Online. 6:36.
He's a producer, writer, and actor, and you may know him from classic comedies such as Superbad, Knocked Up, and Pineapple Express.
Yes, he is Seth Rogen, and he's written a memoir called Yearbook, which features personal accounts of his childhood, teen years, and many celebrity encounters. And he joins us now. Seth Rogen, it is absolutely lovely to talk to you very early, although not terribly early where you are, I presume.
No, it's 10:30 p.m. where I am, which is very late for me, honestly. I'm usually asleep by now, but that's I'm sharp as a tack for you all.
You're early to bed, are you? I thought you were a wild living sort of party animal out there in LA.
Not at all. That is, I maybe at one point, but no, I go to bed very early and wake up very early, and I try to be a normal, productive member of society. That's my only goal in life.
Well, your latest example of your productivity, Seth, is your book, which is an autobiography, really, of sorts, or a series of stories. It's very, very funny. But it's
very funny.
Also, as they say on television, it does contain very strong language from the very beginning. And a lot of drug references. I mean, drugs, you're very honest about it, but you smoke cannabis, smoke marijuana every day?
I do, all day, every day. I have for the last 25 years or so, I would say. It's something that is, intrinsic to my day-to-day functionality.
Well, no wonder you go to bed early.
Exactly. I also wake up early, though.
Well, that's interesting, because when I referred to you sort of, wild partying, LA, that's kind of what we imagine, particularly from a number of your films. But alcohol is something that you don't touch, isn't it?
No, I personally think alcohol, and this is the last thing British people want to hear, I know that, believe me, is, I don't think alcohol, I think on the grand scale of things that we put in our bodies to kind of intoxicate ourselves or remove ourselves from our normal baseline of functionality, alcohol is not a good one. It's high in calories, it gives you a hangover. There are other things we can be putting in our bodies that have much less calories and you don't feel bad the next day, but they are much more stigmatized than alcohol. And that's something I talk a lot about in my book, is that some drugs are more stigmatized than others, just because that was beneficial to certain people in society. But weed, for example, it was heavily stigmatized, and the idea that people who smoke weed are lazy, or if you smoke weed all day, you're problematic or there's something wrong with you, is just not true, and is based on mostly racist lies told by people many years ago that we still, unfortunately, believe for the most part.
Well, America has a particularly odd relationship, doesn't it, at the moment with marijuana, because it is legal in a number of states. But just this month, there's a guy, 38-year-old in Mississippi, who must serve a life sentence handed down to him for marijuana possession. Now, you are talking perfectly openly, liberally, about using it all day, every day. Meanwhile, in a different state, someone's serving a life sentence for possessing it.
Yeah. That speaks 100% to what a terrible political situation America is in right now. It's essentially different countries. The laws in one state drastically differ to the state beside it. To the degree of what you're saying. Something like weed is 100% recreationally legal in some states, and they're still incarcerating mostly black people for it in other states. Still to this day in America, more people are arrested for weed than anything. I think there's 600,000 people in jail for weed right now in America still. And it's all because people make too much money off of that. The prison industrial complex is too good an industry. the police that you were just having on your show, most of them are against the legalization of weed because the thing they arrest most people for is weed. So if weed was legal, guess what? The police would be much less funded, and they don't want that.
There's some fascinating stories and very funny stories in the book, Seth. The one that really took me in was your tale about how the making of and the release of the film The Interview, which is a comedy about an assassination plot on the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which you just meant as a light-hearted story and which turned into a major diplomatic incident. I mean, it sounds like as if it was at the end excruciatingly difficult.
It was, it was a difficult experience as it was happening. I would say, as far as films go, I don't think I'm speaking with hyperbole to say it's probably had the most controversial release in the history of movies. I don't think there's other movies that had, the president dedicating entire press conferences to them, or there's documentaries, there's university courses taught about the release of that film and the hack that happened afterwards. So yeah, it's not what you're looking for when you're making a movie necessarily. But that being said, we came out of it on the other side. I think as a comedian to experience true controversy is helpful because it makes me never complain about the things that most other comedians are complaining about. I don't think
it struck me, Seth, that actually you could make another movie about the making of that movie. And you could probably get a comedy out of it, couldn't you?
Believe it or not, we've talked about that. So yeah, I mean that we're very self-effacing. So yeah.
Seth, in this current era of cancel culture, as they call it, and of course, people sort of examining their consciences about things that have happened in the past and going over their work. When you look back at some of the films that you've done, and I'm thinking of Superbad, Knocked Up, 40-Year-Old Virgin, do you look at those and think, would I make those films again right now? Or has time, has the culture moved on a little bit? Because at the time, those are, and even now, those are hugely popular, funny films. But, they do, in some senses, make people a little bit, some people, uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think there's certain jokes that for sure have not aged well. I think you look at any classic comedy, honestly, it has certain jokes that have not aged well. And I think that's the nature of comedy. I think conceptually those movies are sound, and I think that there's a reason that they've lasted as far as people still watching them and enjoy them today. But I think jokes, are not things that necessarily are built to last. Some things are built to have a long shelf life, other things are not. And some jokes, we never want to be making jokes that are going to, have a short shelf life or that we'll look back on and not be proud of, but it's just the nature of comedy. And it's not something that I complain about or that I think is that big a deal. Honestly, it is just the nature of comedy. And I to me, when I see comedians complaining about this kind of thing, I don't understand what they're complaining about. Like, just if you've made a joke that's aged terribly, accept it. And if you don't think it's aged terribly, then say that. But I think getting criticism is of one of the things that goes along with being an artist in any way, shape, or form. And if you don't like that, then don't be a comedian anymore. To me, it's not worth complaining about to the degree that I see other comedians complaining about it.
So you're not one of those people who has to go over their Twitter feed from years ago and sort of delete and hope people don't come across things that right now you wouldn't be proud of?
No, but I was never a comedian, I don't think, that made jokes that were truly designed to target groups that were subjugated in some way. Again, have we done that without realizing it? Definitely. And of those things, again, those things are in our movies and they're out there. And they're things that I'm more than happy to say that they have not aged well, but in my Twitter, I've never made a joke that's like outwardly horrific in some way. And if you have, I would question why you did that, and, saying terrible things is bad. So if you said something terrible, then that's something you should confront in some way, shape, or form. I don't think that's cancel culture. That's you saying something terrible if that's what you've done.
Well, you've got a lot of jokes to look back on, because you did your first stand-up gig when you were, was it 12 years old?
And you made a lot of jokes about your grandparents, didn't you? They were like your main source material.
They were. I told a lot of jokes about my grandparents. Yeah, my first set, I was 12 years old. I performed in a lesbian bar called The Lotus that had a very Georgia O'Keeffe-esque flower on its awning. I wrote jokes about my grandparents. They were very funny to me. My grandmother especially was born fleeing World War I, and she was a tough lady. And my first jokes were about my grandparents.
You were worried, weren't you? Because it's the opening chapter in the book, yearbook. But you were worried that if they ever came and saw your stand-up comedy, where they were the sort of butt of your jokes, they might be offended. In fact, they took a completely different view, didn't they?
Yes, they were actually very offended when I stopped telling jokes about them. And honestly, to this day, right now, just to let you into my life, what I am dealing with right now is what you would maybe be assuming is like, oh, is your family mad you wrote all these stories about them in the book? What I'm actually dealing with is my sister my parents are mad that my sister is not in the book more. And those are like I gave my family the book to read for the first time, but that was the only phone call I got. Why isn't your sister in the book more? Your sister's not going to be happy that she's not in the book more. You should probably have put your sister in the book more. Why isn't there a picture of your sister on the cover of the book? So,
does your sister agree with... Does she think she should be in the book more?
Yes, she does wish she was in the book more, for sure. And there is a picture of her in the book now that I put in as a result of the first draft getting yelled at by my whole family.
Do you think, is Tom Cruise not mad that he's not in the book, but mad that he is in the book, given the story that you tell about visiting his home and talking about Scientology?
I would imagine he's not thrilled. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how people perceive these things. I've been so wrong in the past, and I think someone like Tom Cruise, his day-to-day experience is so different than mine or yours or the average person that to predict how someone like that might experience something is futile to me. Who knows? But I wouldn't be happy if I was him, and I wrote what I wrote about him in the book. So I would imagine maybe he's not thrilled.
Bill, do you want to divulge a little further about?
Well, he called you over to his house to talk about doing comedy. And you ended up then also discussing, or he wanted to discuss with you, the benefits of his belief in Scientology.
Were you not persuaded, Seth?
Yeah. I was not, So it was a slow sell. And honestly, at first I was like a little insulted because he didn't bring it up. And I was like, am I not good enough for him? Is that, I thought, does he actually just want to talk about comedy? And am I not good enough to be indoctrinated by this man? But eventually, it was around when he had just been jumping on Oprah's couch and kind of just acting generally, strange in the media. And he started to say that he felt that the media was manipulating how he was coming across. And I said, why do you think that? And he said, because I've been costing the pharmaceutical industry so much money that I think they've incentivized the media to make me look bad. And I was like, why? And he's like, because Scientology, we don't believe in pharmaceuticals, and I've damaged the pharmaceutical industry. And then he brought up his friend Louis Farrakhan, which was a shocking revelation as well, where he said, they've done it with Louis Farrakhan as well. They've also made him look bad at the media. And then he said, and then he's like, and it's all because of Scientology. And if you just give me, like an hour to just explain to you what Scientology is, it'll blow your mind. You'll say, no way. You'll say, no way. And honestly, like, I did not have the strength to say, tell me about it, because I was genuinely worried that I was not strong enough to have Tom Cruise pitch me on Scientology and say no to him. Because I'm a huge fan of him.
How do you say no to Tom Cruise? Interesting house visit, though.
He's too charismatic, yeah.
He is. You're absolutely right. Well, Seth, it's absolutely lovely to talk to you. I know you have been quite outspoken about the former president. In the States right now, under a new guy, how do you feel? And especially as today, you know, you were saying we're marking a year since that absolutely shocking event, the murder of George Floyd. How do you reflect on the past year politically?
I think things are better than they were. There's still a long way to go, honestly, I think. I mean, weed reform is like the most glaring thing I can point at. I mean, I don't know if Joe Biden is understands what a big deal it is. I mean, things like that are just so disappointing. Like, people like to diminish things like cannabis law reform and say it's not a big deal, but truthfully, more people get arrested for it than anything in America. And so I think there's a long way to go. You know, is Joe Biden better than Donald Trump? And yeah, you know, but I think that the Democrats in America have a long way to go to make the country, you know, as equitable as it should be.
Seth, it's been a huge pleasure to speak to you, and it's a really great book. I think, as it's 8 minutes to 11 now in California, we should probably let you go to bed.
It's okay. But thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
You're looking very well, by the way, Seth. It looks like a lockdown has been, you know, has been good for you. I mean, not necessarily for some of us, but for you, it looks like it has been.
No, yeah, I thrive alone in my house with my wife and my dog, never leaving or seeing anyone. That is how I was meant to be.
That's your perfect setup. Seth Rogen, thank you so much.
Thank
the
you.
book is Yearbook, and it's a terrific read. Thank you for being with us.
It is. With strong language.
Have a good...
Cheers. With strong language from the very beginning.
Right, okay.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
I think, and he did use some strong language during that interview,
gosh.
so apologies for that if
Yes.
you're offended. Still to come, he's the star of Cabaret, X-Men, and was even a Bond baddie. Alan Cumming joins us live to reveal the unlikely inspiration behind his latest project and why he's refusing to act his age. That's after 8.
You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.
See you in a moment. We have been doing some, well, when I say we haven't been doing some yoga exercises.
Nothing's private in the studio. Nothing's private ever.
Bill Turnbull has been teaching Alex how to do some squats. And but more significantly, there was a very impressive move where Bill said, can you bend over, put both your hands on the floor and stretch your legs? Well...
As it turns out, Alex can't.
I failed. I can't touch my toes, but Bill's comfortably could. It was very impressive.
Flexible.
Well, it takes years to do it.
Yeah.
But I heard Jeffrey Boycott saying to Michael Vaughan once on the Test Match Special, say, can you touch the floor with the palms of your hands? And he says, yes. He said, everybody should be able to. And I thought, yes, I should be able to. So I decided to train myself to do it.
Absolutely brilliant.
It's great.
It's a good challenge.
Very good.
You should be setting that. The Bill Turnbull palms on the floor challenge.
Well, we can all do it together later.
No, we can't.
I'm looking forward to the next advert break. What will we learn next?
No, I'm not doing anything because I realise now you can't breathe without people taking a picture of it and putting it on.
It's television and everything's content, even when you think you're off air.
Namaste.
Namaste. Time now for the competition. Your chance to win a Range Rover and £50,000. Here's Andy with the details.
This place is absolutely beautiful. It's the kind of place that people dream about. And if you've been dreaming of a big win, then stop, because this could be the prize for you. And it all starts with a brand new Range Rover.
It's a Range Rover Evoque. It's a hybrid, so saves on fuel. It comes with 18-inch black alloy wheels, a leather interior, and a panoramic sunroof for those summer days. And talking of summer days, we're also throwing in luxury luggage and sunglasses.
But if that little lot isn't enough to get you entering and you're holding out for some cash, well, I've got that for you. £50,000 in totally tax-free cash. Stop right there. Someone's going to win the car, the luggage, the sunglasses and the cash, and it could be you.
For your chance to win the car, the cash and the loot in the boot, go to the website. Entries cost £2. Text WIN to 65557. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can call 09068 7855557. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and phone number to BK21, PO Box 7558, Derby, DE1 0NQ. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 2 p.m. on Friday, the 11th of June.
Last time we gave away a Range Rover, the competition was massive, so don't miss out. Good luck. Ooh.
Wow, everyone! It's lightning! Proud sponsors of Good Morning Britain National Weather. Boxed Boilers.
Hello, I think that yoga is very good for the weather forecast because it is looking up as we head through the next few days. We are actually, let me just start that again because you're going to miss out on that air mass chart that I wanted to show you. As I run the sequence, as you can see, it makes its way northwards, the jet stream that is, and that allows that warmer air to push up from the near continent, so from France and Spain. So as we get towards Friday, Saturday, into the weekend, we're looking at the dizzy heights of 22 degrees Celsius across the south. It's going to be absolutely lovely. The chance of rain just around 5 to 10%. Today, however, slightly more changeable, sunny spells, some showers, heaviest in the east, a bit like yesterday, and still rather cool for now. But as I say, the temperature's heading in the right direction. The satellite and radar picture shows where we've got the showers across some northern areas, and these will hug the east coast as we head through the course of the day, maybe even merging into longer spells of rain for a time. Also, another area of rain pushes into the southwest of England. That's going to push on into France a bit later on. As I say, the temperature's on the cooler side for now, with a high of 17 degrees in the southeast.
For the weather in detail where you are, go to itv.com/weather.
Tuesday, 25th of May, 2021. Live from Television Centre in London. This is Good Morning Britain with Susanna Reid and Bill Turnbull.
Good morning, Britain. It's only 2 minutes past 7.
We're trying
getting better.
our best.
If we hadn't chatted about yoga, we'd have been bang on time.
I know, if only you hadn't done your downward dog in the studio. 2 minutes past 7, our main news this morning. The government accused of causing confusion for failing to formally announce new restrictions on travelling in and out of COVID hotspots.
Yes, residents in 8 areas of England with high rates of the Indian variant, including Bolton, were issued with the guidance last week, but local leaders and public health directors had not been directly notified. Nick Dixon is at the Royal Bolton Hospital for us this morning. Nick, this seems to have come in under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is official government guidance, so of course it's the council's responsibility in these 8 different areas to get all that messaging out there and let as many people know as possible about the situation and what's changed. But in the case of some of these councils, they're saying that they actually didn't know about these changes and these new restrictions until late last night. So it's all very confusing and uncertain for them and people watching this morning. Now, the guidance officially changed on Friday of last week, but there was no prior announcement, and it affects, as I say, 8 different areas around the country where the Indian variant is considered to be a major problem. The new rules are warning against travelling in and out of these areas, not to meet indoors and to keep 2 metres apart. And obviously, this is going to have a huge impact on people's lives.
It looks as though local areas may be being bounced into this. When actually it would have been better if they'd been making the decisions for themselves. The lack of decisiveness, the poor communications, the inconsistency, marching people up to the top of the hill and marching them down again, it's not good. It's not good government. It's not good management of a pandemic.
Now, the Department of Health have given us a statement. They have said that working with local authorities, they took swift and decisive action to slow the spread of the Indian variant by introducing surge testing and bringing forward second doses of the vaccine for the most vulnerable. They also say that they provided extra guidance for those living in affected areas when they became aware of the risk posed by the variant, to encourage people to take an extra cautious approach when meeting others or travelling. But as I say, This guidance was originally updated last Friday, but this is going to be a huge surprise for a lot of people, particularly given the fact that we're going into a half-term in some areas and a bank holiday as well.
Nick, thank you very much.
That's our main news story this morning. Here's Charlotte with the rest of the day's headlines.
Thanks very much. Good morning. The European Union has joined the UK in issuing sanctions against Belarus following what's been described as a state-sponsored hijack of a plane. The international community is calling for the immediate release of the journalist Roman Protasevich, who was arrested by Belarusian authorities when the flight was forced to land in Minsk. Our chief correspondent, Richard Gaisford, has this report.
Looking tired with suspects bruising on his forehead, Roman Protasevich appears on state television. The opposition journalist confesses to ordering mass protests in Belarus. His supporters say his confession was made under duress. Roman's father goes even further.
He's acting very reserved, and you can see he is nervous. It is very likely that his nose is broken.
Roman was arrested on what's been branded a state hijacking on Sunday. This Ryanair plane was due to carry him and his Russian girlfriend from Athens to Lithuania, but it was forced to divert and land in Minsk due to a supposed bomb threat. Belarus's actions have been condemned across the world and calls are growing for Roman's immediate release. Overnight, EU leaders agreed to slap Belarus with more sanctions and ban their airlines from EU airspace.
The European Council decided that there will be additional sanctions on individuals that are involved in the hijacking, but this time also on businesses and economic entities that are financing this regime.
Britain and the US are taking a similar approach.
We're very confident that no airlines will fly from the UK to Belarus.
But one former ambassador says sanctions can have limited impact.
Sanctions are very good gestural politics. The brutal fact remains that they haven't changed Russian policy one jot, and they're very unlikely to change Belarusian policy one jot.
Belarus's dictator, President Alexander Lukashenko, has been clamping down on opposition protesters since winning a disputed election last August. His regime is this morning under huge international pressure, but there's no sign yet that Roman Protasevich will be released anytime soon. Richard Gaisford, Good Morning Britain.
US President Joe Biden will meet with the family of George Floyd at the White House today to mark the first anniversary of his death at the hands of a Minneapolis police officer. It comes as new policing legislation named in honour of Mr. Floyd continues to be debated in Congress, despite the president setting today as a deadline for its approval. Our North America correspondent Noel Phillips is in Yonkers, New York, with more on this now. And Noel, the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, it could reshape the future of policing in the US and make a big difference, couldn't it?
That's right, Charlotte. It really could, and many were hoping that the bill would have been introduced today, and essentially it would ban chokeholds and hold police officers more accountable. So in the meantime, it's been left to law enforcement agencies like Yonkers here to introduce their own radical reforms. And one of the things that they did following the death of George Floyd last year was introduce body cameras like these, and they were, of course, critical in the trial of the former police officer Derek Chauvin. And alongside those body cameras, they've also refreshed their training on these tasers, which are essential when it comes to de-escalation and can actually be an alternative to an officer having to use their own firearm.
I watched that video, I want to say estimate of 40, 50 times.
The 9-minute footage that sparked a global movement is also Terrence Floyd's final link to his big brother.
You know how when someone passed away, you'll call a phone and you listen to the voicemail just to hear their voice again? It was sort of like that. I heard him speaking on the video, and that was my only way of hearing him speak again.
A year on, Terrence and his family will visit the White House today as President Biden struggles to get police reforms through the Senate.
And I hope in our conversations, he'll just, further his efforts on his promise of passing the bill, because it will stop all these other victims, all these other George Floyds, Breonna Taylors, Dante Wrights from happening again.
In the city of Yonkers, though, there has been changes. Like many police forces across America, it's transformed its policing tactics in the last year. Body cams rolled out for all officers, as well as intelligence-led strategies and de-escalation training to avoid deadly confrontations.
We definitely will see another incident. Absolutely, we will. We, you know, human beings are imperfect. There are bad cops out there. There are cops that make, you know, honest mistakes. There are also people that are addicted to drugs, people that are violent, people that are mentally ill. And when you put all those different things together, I think the key here to me is to not say it'll never happen again.
I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
A phrase that has become a rallying cry against police brutality. Derek Chauvin, the former police officer convicted of murdering George Floyd, will be sentenced next month. But those taking part in events to mark the anniversary say lawmakers must deliver urgent federal legislations to ensure the murder of George Floyd is a lasting moment for change. Noel Phillips, Good Morning Britain, New York.
10 minutes past 7, still ahead on Good Morning Britain. Are you a green-fingered perfectionist or happy to show your wild side? We're talking to the expert who says don't mow, let it grow. He wants to ban manicured gardens. Find out why after 8.
Now, though, let's get the news, travel and weather where you are.
See you in a moment. At 13 minutes past 7, still to come. He's the Strictly star who wants to break the curse of the dreaded nul point. Is Bill Bailey the answer to our Eurovision prayers? Find out when he joins us live after 8 o'clock. Also this morning, I just want to say big happy birthday to a very special person in my life. That's my daddy. Aww. Happy birthday, Dad. That's from a couple of years ago outside Buckingham Palace, as you can probably tell. Last year, he, like many people, had a birthday in lockdown, but this year I was able to spend a bit of time with him. So happy birthday, Dad. Have a lovely day.
Many happy returns. You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.
See you in a moment.
Welcome back. Well, with us, the Mirror's Kevin Maguire and the Mail's Andrew Pearce on their daily visit to us to talk about the big political stories of the day. Morning, guys. Good
morning. Morning. Are we going to have a look through the front page?
Oh, is that what we do first?
Well, we don't have to.
No, let's do it.
OK.
Let's remind people what's going on. And I beg your pardon. I'm sorry, I'm completely out of turn.
No, I don't. To be fair, it wasn't.
If that's what they said.
Yes, exactly right.
Let's take a look at the front page.
Exactly. The UK Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab, has promised sanctions against Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko. This is the front of the Metro this morning, calling the diversion of the flight over a supposed bomb threat a danger to civilian flights everywhere.
The Daily Telegraph is reporting that people who've had 2 doses of the vaccine could still be made to self-isolate at home if they've been in contact with someone who's had the virus after the 21st of June, when the final stage of England's roadmap out of lockdown is due to take place.
Don't abandon hungry kids is the Daily Mirror's headline. The paper reports that Premier League star Marcus Rashford has urged the government to finally do the right thing after MPs debated his child hunger petition. Right.
So we're joined by the Mirror's Kevin Maguire and the Mail's Andrew Pearce. Forget about what we said earlier. And these 8 areas, all of a sudden, you know, government put it out last week, nobody noticed. How does that happen?
Well, no, it's going back to the old chaos, confusion and mistakes, and it's unforgivable now. Maybe at the beginning of the pandemic, March, April last year, you could understand why it might happen. But to decide in these 8 areas that you shouldn't travel without, you shouldn't mix indoors, but then to just put it on a Cabinet Office website on about 5:30 Friday evening, but not tell public health officials in those areas who would have to manage it, police it, speak to the local population. It's just crazy and unforgivable.
Well, it seems absolutely remarkable, considering a lot of people in those areas will travel outside of them to go to work.
Yeah.
We have half-term coming up next week.
Yeah.
A lot of people might even be travelling from those areas to go abroad for half-term.
Look, I completely agree with the idea of localised lockdowns because you don't want to shut the whole country down because of COVID. But they do have to tell people. They have to bring people with them on
Well,
that sort of thing.
this does look like local lockdowns again. And
That's what it is,
Yeah, exactly right. But you can't have a silent, invisible local lockdown if you're not going to inform people. It's not going to be enforceable.
No, people need to know. I mean, for instance, I know North Tyneside because I'm from South Shields on the other side of the river. The ferry's still running across. The metro still runs through it. People will be getting on buses and driving to Newcastle to go to work. Are you saying they shouldn't be doing that now? You've got to spell it out, and people have to know. People can't comply with
something
regulation.
they didn't know about.
Well, there are two mind-boggling issues here. One is the point that you've made about people just not being able to do that now, especially as we're coming out. But also this idea that they just got the announcement completely wrong. I mean, I can't understand how that happens. Somebody putting it out there on the website must have said, do you know, it might be a good idea actually to tell the local authorities involved. Or who's not thinking?
I spoke to somebody in the Cabinet Office yesterday. They never mentioned it. You'd think they'd talk to a journalist. You do know what's happening, and we've got to get the information out. Nobody mentioned.
Well, they do have a lovely £2.5 million briefing room. I mean, they could possibly stand at a very expensive lectern.
They could have had the local MPs in there talking about it.
Well, certainly Public Health England officials. It seems very odd.
Yes.
It's a cock-up.
It's a mistake. But again, I just come back. I don't think it's forgivable now at this point. Of course, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, wants the whole of England to move in lockstep. Lift all restrictions, cross the whole of England at the same time. Maybe that's just not possible, because if you do have local problems and you want to nip them in the bud, you do need local measures. What they're proposing here about the travelling in and out and so on, there's no force of law on it. They're going to ask people to comply, but to get people to comply,
but the progress,
they've got to know.
Got to take them with them.
The progress perhaps isn't as great as we might have expected, because we're now told that the update on the review of social distancing that we were expecting by the end of this month may not actually happen. So what do you make of that? What's that mean?
Well, I suppose they're looking at the data, and the Prime Minister's desperate on June 21st to lift restrictions.
To look like he's, unlocking the country.
Yeah, I think it's a
we want to get out of it.
You've got to follow the data. Bill, would be surprised if we don't get something tomorrow night, Thursday morning, because Dominic Cummings, the worst best friend of the Prime Minister now, his former chief aide, is going to be 4 hours grilled by MPs, probably making lots of allegations about herd immunity, mistakes in number 10 and so on. So I think they'll want to distract from it with something tomorrow night.
And that
Thursday
Dominic
morning.
Cummings will appear tomorrow, won't he?
Big moment.
Yes, it will be a big moment, and it'll be interesting to see how the government responds. Daily Mirror this morning, your paper, Kevin, has... I mean, he really is a hero for our times, isn't he? Marcus Rashford, with this plea to the government to finally do the right thing for the country's many hungry children. He had an enormous effect over the course of the pandemic with making sure that free school meals provision was provided over the summer holidays and also the half-term holidays. And it seems it's almost as if you have a big issue, you need to use Marcus Rashford to promote it, because it's like the government can't say no to him. He's so powerful as a social campaigner.
It is, and he got he got the government in England to shift a couple of times on feeding hungry kids during the school holidays. Scotland, Wales had their own arrangements, and in Northern Ireland too. But he's a moral voice, and he is somebody who gives football a good name.
Yeah.
I think it's because he comes from a background where he relied on free school meals, so he can speak with a real authenticity about what it means, and it's a reasonable way he talks about it. And we discussed months past why Boris Johnson sometimes was rather slow to get the message.
Why would the Tory government get into a fight with a bloke like that? And twice they got into a fight with him, and twice they lost.
Well, and particularly Therese Coffey. Who had gotten a bit of a sort of, shall we say, vigorous debate with him on Twitter last year. Well, funnily enough, we've got her on the show, so we can discuss the article with her.
No, look, I know nothing about football, but I know this bloke is a great guy, and he's done brilliantly. And the Tories can't afford to get into a fight with him.
What is going to happen with Belarus and Lukashenko? Because we now have this guy who the plane was grounded for to arrest. We've seen him on camera. What does Europe do about Lukashenko, this, the last dictator?
It's got to be something very strong, because actually you're going to have to start to think, hang on, if a dictator like Lukashenko can just ground a plane, we could, so no British flight can ever go over Belarus airspace again. But there's got to be more important measures, because otherwise other dictators might do the same. Think about Iran. It's a gangster state. Russia is a gangster state, in my view. This could happen in other countries. I mean, imagine you're on a flight, you're going on holiday somewhere, and you're grounded. So they can take a journalist off the flight who's clearly been beaten up as well.
Yes, he's got bruises on his forehead in the film.
And isn't there a big pipeline going into Belarus? That's what they're going to have to hit him with.
You know, they seized from that flight to his girlfriend. He'd given, according to passengers on the plane, he'd given her his phone and his laptop. They've taken her as well. If you're held like that, you're being beaten. They have your girlfriend. We don't know quite what threats would be made, but you'd confess to anything. Yeah. If they said, "Look, are you a Martian and the moon's made of cheese?" You would say yes, because you'd be absolutely terrified. But the flights let no flights go over Belarus airspace, banning the Belarus state carrier landing in airports and in the rest of Europe and the UK can only be the first steps. You've got to follow the money. There will be a lot of Belarusian money sloshing around in the city of London. There will be a lot of banks supplying and financing Belarusian deals. That's where you've got to do. You've got to choke them economically. That's the only way. This is a dictator. He's not going to move easily, but you've got to show determination, because he rigs elections. We saw that. He arrests, has abused, has tortured, and people have been murdered. Their opponents. So he's not going to give in easily, but you've got to choke him economically.
We saw the Ryanair flight there. The boss, Michael O'Leary, because of course the airline bosses must be extremely concerned about this, said the incident was a state-sponsored hijacking and claimed agents from Russia's KGB were on board the flight. It was clear, he said, it appears that the intent of the Russian authorities was to remove a journalist and his travelling companion. We believe there was also some KGB agents offloaded from the aircraft as well.
It's because Putin is a very bad man, and that's his mate. The guy in Belarus is his mate, and he's a very bad man, and we still have to do business with Putin.
Putin and the Kremlin will be loving it that everybody looks into him, because in the short term, what do you do to get this journalist free? It's very difficult to get that leverage, but you can down the line, but it has to be real determined economic sanctions.
All right, Andrew, Kevin, thanks very much indeed.
Still to come, the Love Island star who's battling a rare type of cancer, Demi Jones, talking about her devastating diagnosis to encourage others to get checked. She'll be joining us live here in the studio shortly.
You're watching Good Morning Britain on ITV.